The first blow landed with such brutal force that the sound echoed across the quiet clearing. A dull, bone-shaking crack that made the little girl scream before her mind could even grasp what she had just witnessed. In that instant, her mother was no longer standing tall in front of her, no longer shielding her with quiet resolve. Instead, she collapsed to her knees as three men laughed, as if it were a joke, as if suffering were nothing more than afternoon entertainment on a gray, lifeless day. Mud splashed upward when a boot came down again, and instinct took over. The widow bent forward, wrapping her arms around her daughter, her body transforming into a barrier without hesitation. That is what love becomes when fear overwhelms everything else and no one is left to help. It turns flesh into armor. Before continuing, don't forget to like, share, or subscribe. I'm genuinely curious. What country are you watching from? Tell me in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Back to the story. The men reeked of beer and hollow confidence, their laughter sharp and careless. One leaned lazily against a wooden porch post while another nudged the woman with his boot, mocking her tears, sneering at the way her daughter clutched her jacket, trembling, whispering her mother's name over and over like a prayer that refused to work. The widow's face was swollen with bruises, her breathing uneven, yet she never begged for herself, only for her child. Her voice cracked as she pleaded, promising anything, telling them she was alone now, that her husband was gone. Words poured out unchecked because desperation no longer filters itself. It didn't matter. Cruelty rarely needs justification, and borrowed power has a way of making weak men feel untouchable. One of them lifted his foot again, aiming closer this time. The little girl screamed louder. Her small body shook violently against her mother's chest, eyes squeezed shut as if darkness alone could erase reality. That was the moment everything shifted, though none of them understood it yet. From the edge of the trees came the unmistakable sound of boots on gravel. Fast, heavy, purposeful. Not hesitant, not uncertain. Controlled. Then a deep, sharp bark cut through the laughter like a blade. The men turned, confusion flashing across their faces as a German shepherd burst into view, muscles taut, eyes locked forward, moving with the focused intensity of an animal trained for moments exactly like this. Just behind him stood a man in a worn military uniform. His jaw was clenched, his eyes colder than anger itself. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His presence alone altered the air, the way true authority always does, earned through discipline and loss, never through intimidation. The dog stopped inches from the nearest attacker, teeth bared, perfectly restrained, waiting for a single command. The man's hand hovered near his sidearm, not rushed, not shaking, simply ready. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and steady, each word heavy with consequence. He told them to step back, to move away slowly, and to think very carefully about what they did next. One of the men let out a nervous laugh, trying to save face, but it died halfway through when he saw the soldier's eyes. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't a warning meant to scare and fade. This was a line they had crossed without realizing it. The widow looked up, still holding her daughter, and for the first time since the nightmare began, she felt something resembling safety, even if it came in the form of a stranger and a war-trained dog. The little girl peeked over her mother's shoulder, tears streaking her face, and met the German shepherd's gaze. The dog held it calmly, tail still, body steady, as if silently promising that no one would hurt them again. In that fragile, trembling silence, While the forest itself seemed to hold its breath, the Marine Special Operations soldier stepped forward, and everything the men thought they controlled began to unravel. The laughter didn't fade. It vanished instantly, snapped off like a wire pulled too tight. Fear has its own sound when it finally arrives, and each of them heard it inside their chest. The dog moved with him, paws silent on the gravel, head low, eyes never leaving the man who had raised his boot. That kind of focus triggers instinctive terror long before logic catches up. "You will not touch her again," the soldier said calmly. His voice was steady in a way that made it worse. Not emotional, not reactive, but final, like a door closing forever. He positioned himself slightly in front of the widow and her child without looking back, his body forming a shield as naturally as breathing. Protecting the vulnerable had never been a choice in his life. It was a reflex burned deep into muscle memory. One of the men tried to speak, to explain, but his words tangled and collapsed under the weight of the moment, especially when the dog took one deliberate step closer. Teeth still visible, breathing controlled, waiting. The soldier gave a single, sharp command, quiet but precise. The German shepherd froze instantly, discipline on full display. A reminder that this animal was not wild, but trained, and that made him far more dangerous. "Back away," the soldier said again. This time they obeyed. Boots scraped clumsily against the ground as bravado drained from their faces and reality finally caught up with them. He didn't chase them. He didn't need to. The threat ended the moment they chose fear over cruelty. He waited until they disappeared down the gravel road before finally turning back. The widow began to shake as the adrenaline faded. Her arms ached from holding her daughter so tightly. Tears streamed silently down her face. The soldier knelt slowly, his movements gentle, lowering himself to their level so he wouldn't tower over them, so he wouldn't become another source of fear. The German shepherd sat beside him, posture proud but calm, eyes soft as he looked at the little girl. "You're safe now," the man said quietly, not as a promise, but as a statement of fact. The girl stared at him, then at the dog. Something inside her loosened, and she nodded. Her grip on her mother finally relaxed. The widow whispered "thank you" again and again, her voice breaking, words inadequate but all she had. The soldier listened without interrupting, because sometimes saving someone doesn't end with force, but with presence. Later, when help arrived and the shock began to ease, the girl hesitantly reached out and touched the dog's fur. Her fingers sank into warmth and strength, and for the first time that day, she smiled, small, uncertain, but real. The soldier watched quietly, knowing he wouldn't be remembered as a hero, just a stranger who showed up at the right moment. And that was enough. As he walked away with his canine partner at his side, silence returned to the forest. But the story didn't end there. For a widow and her daughter, the world had proven something important that day. That even in moments of cruelty and darkness, there are people who run toward danger, and that they are never truly alone. This story touched millions of hearts. Did it touch yours too? Let us know with a like.